Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about the superficial front line. Last week we did the superficial back line, today we're doing the front line. So if you can remember from last week, the superficial back line obviously runs along the back. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. And it kind of helps us to keep a nice upright posture. It kind of pulls us back. It's under constant tension to keep us here and not let us fall forward. So obviously therefore the superficial front line kind of does the opposite. It kind of pulls us forward, more so goes into trunk flexion and also pulling in some tension from the legs up into the hips. So with the superficial front line, it doesn't start under the foot, it's on top of the foot this time, and so it feeds from your toe flexors, flexing the toes up, all the way just through the front compartment, so nicely going through the ankle joint here, right up over the knee, through the quad compartment, and actually kind of almost finishes in the hips here. What the superficial front line does then is it has just some very tiny thin fibers keeping it connected to where it goes next. So it kind of crosses in to the midline, into the pubic area here, and then covers through your abdominal region, through the chest, goes up the sternum, and on the top here it actually goes and splits into two. So you've got your SCM muscle, your sternocleidomastoid muscle, which runs off the sternum over the clavicles, your collarbones, and goes around your neck and goes up behind your head. So let's see if we can possibly do this here. So if I've got that there, so it kind of looks, just kind of tuck that away. So that is kind of what you're looking for the superficial front line. Okay, so, and you can see now as well why, if this is under tension, this would lead to this as well as pulling this up. Okay, so what we often see, particular problems through the SCM muscle and the connective tissue that's joined up here, because it does run right under the skull, and then as I said, pulls from the sternum here. So what we're getting with this one, often when this gets nice and tight or stuck in a position, it pulls down and forward, and we're getting our nice strong forward head position happening here. Okay, so that's one of the major issues we see with the superficial front line, is the head forward position is coming through that. We've also often have, again, more trunk, just simple trunk flexion, but more so through the upper. We don't often see a pull-up motion through the hip, because, as I said, the superficial front line is more to pull down in general. So even the pelvic here, even that's connected, and one would say, or you're coming in this way, it kind of, we don't see too much of that happening. So if anything happening, it's mostly up from here, pulling down. If there is any tension down here, most of the time other stuff is too dominant for this to show. Okay, so often people just have their lordosis really strong, so the hip is tilted forward, so we're talking about a forward tilt even though it's kind of going back, rather than a backward tilt of the hip where this would be sitting strong and dominant. So we don't see too much of that. What we can see through the leg here often is not many visual stuff necessarily, but we do get just very tight quad compartments with a lot of people, which can feed into very tight hip flexors or a tight hip compartment as it is. However, what I want to kind of focus on is that we do tap into those toe flexors on the superficial front line. So if you are like most others, you'll be walking around in sneakers often the time, or when you're working out, and sneakers in general. And if you have never paid attention to it, I'll ask you to go now and grab them, or once this video is finished, and have a look at them. So the way they're actually designed is that they always kind of keep your toes off the floor. So I might actually just pop my foot up here. So you're in your foot here, and you usually have a heel lift, and at the same time your toes are off the ground there. So you have contact through the heel still, because obviously you've got something sitting underneath there. But therefore you're then having those pulled up toes. Now if you can look at my ankle, that's in a fairly neutral position. I might actually bring that a closer. There we go, that's maybe a bit better. Because of the heel lift, your ankle flexion here, so that ankle there, because of the heel flexion, that gets opened. So we're open through our ankle, but now we're getting the toes into flexion and we're getting really short and tight through here without this being affected, because you're not actively flexing, it's pushed into a position. So what I find a lot with people that wear sneakers a lot, or shoes that kind of push the toes up, and also having that heel lift constantly, we've got this open ankle position, and therefore we are losing the ability to flex, because these are already working here, so there's not much more to actually pull from there, and they're getting kind of tight because they are sitting in that position. So we're losing ankle flexion ability. So I'm not going to go into the ankle flexion, what to do against it though today too much. This is going to be another video. What I want to focus on is how to get out of that forward head position, loosen up that here. You can do some manual relief work and just work through there, and ideally is to pull it down as you pull your chin up, and then just work your way through there. But a really effective one to actually reset your position is to find a wall and stay with your back touching it, with your bum touching it, just nice and upright, right against a wall. And then you want to try and touch the wall with the back of your head without changing the level of where your eyes and your nose and your chin is sitting. So from the side it should be looking somewhat like this. So if you're slightly forward here, you're nice and upright against the wall. So what you want to do now is push your chin back without losing too much of leveling, and just pull your head back into a nice neutral position. So your ears should line up with your shoulders should line up with your hips, with your knees, with your heels. Okay, so and then you don't stay in this position. What you do is to actually relax back out of it and then push back into it and relax. This is a bit extreme. Sometimes I do have a head forward, but not on a general basis. And then back in. And you just find your wall, and you just kind of, while you're waiting for the kettle to boil the water or something, just find yourself a wall and just go through that movement. Push and release, and push and release. So you're just actively getting some movement back in those tight areas. So that's the main one I want to give you home on this one today. If you feel that you've got issues possibly through that front line, so with that position here, with that trunk flexion there, or with tightness or lost ankle flexion through there, then either get in touch with me and we'll see what I can do, and what I can teach you and show you, and so you can take care of yourself. Otherwise, stay tuned. As I said, ankle flexion is going to be something we'll be working on in the future as well. And yeah, so that's your superficial front line in a very compressed bubble, so to speak. Alright, we'll see you next week for the lateral line. Till then.